Hi, everyone. It's your friendly neighborhood coach, Jason. Today, we're talking about feeding yourself, not nutrition. We're talking about what you feed yourself mentally, how you get yourself in a position to improve your life. Today, I will be using the example of your relationship with your partner, but this pretty much counts for everything. Let's go. The first thing I want you to think about is that you originally were fed by somebody else. We came into this world, we have our families, we have culture, we have all of these systems around us that teach us as a baby, as a child, what we are going to think, how we're going to move through the world. And typically, either we emulate what we see or we run far and fast from it. And sometimes, for a lot of us, we do sort of a pick and choose from both. We say, I want to keep this, I want to get rid of that in my life, and specifically in your relationship. So, for example, if you saw how your parents interacted with each other and you thought it was amazing, you're probably going to want to interact with your partner later on in the same way. If you saw what happened between your parents and you just didn't really like it, or you didn't think it was great, it's most likely that you are going to turn around when you look for a relationship to build something different. Or the third option, as I was saying to you before, you're going to say, well, I liked this about my parents and I didn't like this. And it's not just your parents, it's your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, the people in your community around you. You are going to look at what you saw and in your own young life decide how you want to have relationships. I want you to start analyzing what it is that you are consuming or putting into your mind so that you're not just randomly walking around listening to people who don't necessarily have your best interest at heart. When you're watching a video, reading a book, listening to a podcast, I want you to actually analyze who is the focus? Who is it for? And I don't just mean, is it for guys? A lot of the stuff we listen to, especially when I talk to my friends or my clients, it is coached as being for guys. But when you really listen, you're going to realize it's for certain kinds of guys. And I want you to think about if what the people you are listening to or reading or watching is really helpful to you. You also need to think about what is the goal of the people that you are listening to. Some people just want to sell you products. Ideally, they want to sell you a product that helps you, but frankly, some people just want to sell you a product. You have to also realize that your time and attention at this point is a product. You're watching a video, like my video, is a product. It's what people want. So you have to think, am I getting anything out of this? Some of these podcasts are hours long. And when I talk to my clients, there's things they could do in the real world for their relationship that they're not doing, but they'll watch hours of podcasts every day, or they'll watch hours of shows. And frankly, sometimes what the people who are producing these shows want you to do is just to keep coming along and seeing their show so that they can get their money. Some of them want to get a rise out of you. A lot of them just want to get your feelings going. They maybe even want to get so much out of you that you are angry. Now, if you spend a lot of time consuming stuff that makes you angry, not necessarily your partner, but just in general, the way that you show up in the world changes immensely. And it's very hard for you to be a person who's in a healthy relationship with somebody if you are angry. And I know that I'm speaking to dudes in this video, but this is also true for everybody else. This is true for ladies also. If you're watching stuff that gets a rise out of you, gets you angry, it's not going to necessarily put you in the best place to have a good relationship with your partner or anybody else for that matter. Some of them want to help you find somebody to blame. That might even be you. Some of them want you to feel guilt and shame about what you've been doing in your relationship, how you've been showing up in the world, what you earn or don't earn, what you do with your kids or don't do with your kids. And instead of giving you constructive things to do, they really are piling on the guilt and shame. And we sort of get into a cycle where we start feeling like feeling guilty or feeling ashamed is doing the work that we need to do to improve things. And it's not. People don't need you to feel guilty or feel ashamed to actually make a bigger impact or a better impact in the world. They need you to take actions. One of the reasons that they want you to feel that way is because it primes you. Fear primes you. Anger primes you. Guilt primes you to buy stuff. So if I make you feel ashamed or sad or angry, you are more likely to join my program or just keep watching because you're getting adrenaline, testosterone pumping through your system, and you're feeling, hey, something's happening, and you just want to keep watching. You're getting some dopamine because things are happening for you internally. So I want you to think about that and analyze that with anything that you watch. And if it's not giving you actions that you can take, then find other stuff that is giving you things that either you can do physically or mentally in order to improve the situation that you're in. So I want to offer you just that. I want to offer you what I would consider to be a lens change, right? What you want to look for is things that help the relationship. Anecdotal stuff, which means things that I've experienced, sure, they might help some people. There's also tons of great research. There are great books out there that you can read. I would suggest just about anything from the Gottmans for a start. I'll probably put some links below for books by the Gottmans that are easy to read that would actually help you in your relationship. There are things that can help you to calm down. Some people might even be suggesting, hey, you need to do some meditation if you're always angry. That would give you more calm and more ability to reason instead of getting worked up. So, all other things that could help you are things that make you more healthy. It's not just up to your partner to come in and make you feel happy or make you feel pampered, accepted, respected. If the only place that you feel those things is through your partner, the bad news is it's going to be very difficult at certain stages and phases of life for your partner to do that. You need other sources of that that are healthy. And we'll get more into that another time. I want you to think of the long term. When you're listening to anybody tell you advice or things that work in their relationship, I want you to think of the long term impact of what they're saying. What is the long term outcome on my life and on my relationship if I actually use the things that are being said to me? If I'm dishonest or manipulative or controlling or like a parent to my partner, it's probably not going to be great in the long term. Also, when somebody tells you something, I want you to think of the opposite of what they're saying and think if it would be a good or bad thing in your relationship. And the other thing I want us to get into is accepting that there's not always just two solutions or two ways to go. There's not always a right and a wrong. Every relationship that we're in is a bespoke relationship, which means it's a custom job. The thing that you have with your partner and the needs of your relationship is something that is specific to you. Sure, there are common things. There are common things that every trust-based relationship needs, but what your partner needs today, what your partner needs this week, isn't necessarily going to be the same thing as what everybody else's relationship needs right now. And I want you to remember that when you're consuming information, when you're trying to improve your life. The last thing I want you to think about in a lens changes is your situation the same or even close to what the people you're talking about are saying? Sometimes you're watching people, and frankly, they are multimillionaires. They are in their 20s and they have no experience with life outside of playing their sport, being successful at their sport, and now being someone who is coming out here to talk to you about their experience. It doesn't mean that their lived experience is not valid. It means you need to consider how it applies to you in your life and not just run off with it and think, oh, well, this worked for so and so, so it's got to work for me. Take it, digest it, but take it with a grain of salt and consider what are the differences in my relationship? What are the differences with my partner? And some of the things that we get into with these labels, the more recent ones, high value this, low value that, alpha this, beta that, you have to consider what makes you an alpha or what makes you a beta, what makes you high value. It may not be the same thing to your partner as it is to a lot of people, right? The thing that brings value in your relationship that you do is something that is very unique to you and your partner, even though there are basic things that we all want. The last thing I want you to think about are the environmental factors. What are environmental factors? Personally, when you consume information, earlier in the day, we generally have more energy and frankly, more hope than we do later on in the evening when things may have happened if you've had a disagreement or a fight even with your partner, and then you go and watch these podcasts instead of going to sleep or read something, or like are listening to stuff, when you're in this mindset, you have to realize that that mindset creates a filter that you get the information through. And I want you to be aware of that and how it impacts how you deal with the information and how you use the information in your relationship. I want you to be aware that there are systems of power. Money is an obvious one, and there are many others, but I won't get into them. This would make the video really long. But you have to consider how systems of power are playing out in your life and how they're playing out in your partner's life and how they're playing out together or with your kids, which means the things that are going on can be impacted by just social pressure. There's cultural pressure outside of social pressure, even though culture is part of society. An example is that you have a specific culture in your household, which is created by the norms that you and your family set inside your house, right? You have then social norms, which are outside of the house, but family expectations internally and family expectations of the greater family are something that you have to consider when you're looking at information and how you're going to use it in your own family. You also need to consider tropes and memes. Memes are obvious things that we see on social media that make things very simple and sometimes humorous, but they're not always true. And we need to be careful if we keep consuming memes, for example, that say girl math, guy math, we start to believe it. Now it's funny and we might laugh at it together, but you need to understand your partner, not to just understand what the internet thinks of women or what the internet thinks of men. Tropes aren't necessarily memes, but they can be things that people say even at a wedding. People will say things. I have even younger guys now still saying this to me: happy wife, happy life. Now, I'm a 50-year-old dude, and this is something that I knew I heard a lot when I was in my 20s, but I'm still hearing it from guys now. Yes, it's your task to take care of your partner. You have things that you need to do, but there is no way that even if you do your tasks that you can guarantee that your partner is going to be happy. She may not be happy. So having a happy wife does not necessarily equal a happy life. And also, even if she's happy, it may not make your life happy because you have things that you need, that you want out of life, that you are driven to do, which aren't just about her happiness. And on the flip side, you're still hearing things like a man's house is his castle. If the man's house is his castle, he's a king. You need to recognize that she is a queen also. It's her castle also. It never just becomes your house where you can dictate everything that happens in the house, because it puts you in a parentified situation where you're this and your partner is essentially a child at the end of the day. And it's not what you want in a partnership. Sadly, a lot of this content is very popular, which means it's pervasive and we start to believe it. And I want you to think about what you're consuming, why you're consuming it, and what it's doing for your relationship. I'll post some links below of things that I consume. I'm going to keep sharing more stuff as I post things that will help you also. I hope this helps. Take care. Have a good day.